Nintendo has almost never been a directionless company. Most decisions they go into are with clear purpose and intention. It's just about whether those strong ideas are good ideas from the majority of customers' perspectives. Sometimes this pays dividends, like the wow factor of the revolutionary 3D duo of Mario 64 and Zelda Ocarina of Time, or the casual appeal that got a Wii into your house as well as your grandma's retirement home, and much more. On the other hand, sometimes their dedication to an approach has backfired from a commercial success angle. For example, the huge swings at the core and teen gamer market with the GameCube, but with an unusual form factor, and the double down on the casual gamers who weren't looking for a new console with the Wii U. Most recently, the Nintendo Switch has been a clear example of the former and has brought together just about all the best attributes Nintendo has to offer from a high-level view. But as Nintendo is certainly setting their sights on what comes ahead, and with their next console purportedly having been shown behind the scenes, this transition period at the tail end of the current console life has historically been a tricky one for them. And based on some decisions they're currently making, it begs the question, is Nintendo in a bad spot right now? Or are they exactly where they need to be? Let's talk about it. As we kick off, I usually don't mention this till the end of the video, but I'd love for you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We've got a slew of videos coming up that all lead into each other really well, starting with this one, and I'd love for you to join us on that journey. So, back to the question. Is Nintendo in a bad spot right now, or a great one? I'm going to answer that question here at the beginning of the video and then tell you why, because that's by far the most interesting part. So the answer, Nintendo is right where they want to be. Like I said, Nintendo is almost never a directionless company, and I think that not only do they have a strong direction right now, but I also think it's gonna work. So, let's work our way backwards. With the next generation not too far off, what's Nintendo's goal right now? Firstly, to announce that system at the right time and with the right lineup of games. Secondly, to continue to support their current system, both to keep making money, selling games, and building franchise power in the here and now, and also to carry as much of the massive Switch install base forward to their next system. And lastly, and this is a brand new priority, support their IP in the broader entertainment space in a two-way approach, where their games prop up their other media, like the Mario movie and theme park, and those, in turn, support their game sales. This is honestly a lot to consider all at once, and especially when, as a company, you don't have unlimited resources, it's a bit of a tactics game. If Nintendo was playing the board game Risk, do they move all of their units but one and get their next system set up for success by leaving their current system out to dry? Or do they try to milk the huge install base they have for all it's worth and just hope that the next one goes well? Or somewhere in the middle? And Nintendo has an ace up their sleeve here, but I think even before that specific transition and looking ahead a little bit, it's worth looking back too. So here, coming into the last years of the Switch being Nintendo's only system, we have 6 years of just incredible games on the library. Truly, the Switch library, especially if you include the games on Nintendo Switch Online, has the best first-party lineup in their history, and as a Nintendo fan, subjectively, in the history of consoles, but that's neither here nor there. But 2023 has been absolutely key for this conversation in particular. Consoles like the Wii had a really strong opening with Mario Galaxy and Twilight Princess and a ton more. Lots that catered to both the casual audience, but also the tried and true Nintendo fanbase. However, as the years went on, Nintendo catered more to the casual audience, and the core fanbase was losing interest. And while there is a vocal minority who say they're doing the same on the Switch, the numbers absolutely say otherwise. In 2023 specifically, Tears of the Kingdom became the fastest selling first-party game ever. Metroid Prime Remaster received a 94 on Metacritic and was a delight. Pikmin 4 is arguably the best, but definitely the most robust and approachable game in the series, and is certainly the best-selling. And the holiday isn't slowing down with a fresh new 2D Mario, a ground-up remake of Super Mario RPG, Pokemon DLC, and a ton more. I think if 2023 had just been a bad year on the Switch, that would cause some problems for their transition into next gen. And sure, that's what the Wii U had. 2016 had a couple good games before the Switch launch in 2017, but it certainly had more bad press than good press, with Star Fox Zero missing the mark, Paper Mario Color Splash disappointing a vocal audience, and very quiet sales for Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE, Twilight Princess HD and Pokken Tournament were probably the only truly positive things to come out that year, and they were in March and barely cracked 1 million sales each, the highest selling new games for the console for the whole year. But then, of course, the Switch had a great launch despite that. So, by that logic, Switch could have a lousy last year and next gen could still come out swinging. Except that, no, that's not really the case. The Switch was a complete restart for Nintendo to the vast majority of the public. It's much better and much less work to continue momentum than to have to completely restart it every time. Like, do you know how much money and effort Nintendo put into the upstart marketing for the Switch? And if you're a lapsed Nintendo fan who finally came back around for the Switch and then you fall off completely, it's harder to win you back over a second time with a new thing that's probably more of the same. It's a lot easier to bring fans back from a break than a breakup. So, thankfully, 2023 has been a really solid year with barely any monkey paws. But 2023 is also the year that we're starting to see that ace up their sleeve, which in short is remakes. And sure, Nintendo has been porting games from the Wii U for the entirety of the Switch lifecycle, but this is different. There's clear strategy here, and we'll see that it's really well thought out. Like I said, there are very few monkey paws for Nintendo right now, like scarily few. That's not to say that things are all incredible news either, but this feeling that most things are pretty okay comes at a time where a good few of their recent and upcoming games are intentionally safer, crowd-pleasing, strategic, or even lower-effort projects. And oftentimes, in the past, those have left fans with a really bad taste in their mouth. But maybe it's just me, but that's not as much the case now as those other times. The games I really want to highlight for similar but varying reasons are the following: Metroid Prime Remaster, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, Pikmin 1+2, Super Mario RPG, Another Code Recollection, Mario vs. Donkey Kong, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Outside of the last two, which aren't specifically dated yet, all of the rest of those games are remakes or remasters releasing in the span of barely over 12 months. And yet, there's positive praise for just about all of them, several being even borderline fan service. Take Pikmin 2, an arguably very simple HD port of the niche but beloved games coming out right before the newest game in the series, Pikmin 4, shadow dropped no less, and they complete the accessibility of the franchise's mainline games on the Switch. Great press and fan service, and took Nintendo minimal time compared to an all-new release. Next, Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, also HD ports of standard definition games. Kirby's Return to Dreamland is one of the highest regarded traditional Kirby games, and this remaster added several new exciting features and a new story mode. Luigi's Mansion 2 is a follow-up for the Switch to Luigi's Mansion 3, which sold insanely well and was very well received, and 2 is a great game in its own right. It also has new content, and we'll see if they add even more by launch. Advance Wars Reboot Camp is a ground-up remake of a series that's been absent for a long time and was outsourced to a third party, just like Samus Returns was on the 3DS and Famicom Detective Club earlier on the Switch, and so on. Next, Another Code Recollection isn't just an HD port or a new coat of paint, but the first game of the double pack is literally reimagined from its top-down perspective to a full adventure mystery game. Metroid Prime Remaster features fully new graphics and tweaks controls and translates one of the best games ever to an even more feature-packed experience. And lastly, the Mario games. Mario vs. Donkey Kong is a fully rebuilt remake of the 2004 Game Boy Advance game of the same name. Super Mario RPG is a similar situation, but with the largely inaccessible SNES title, and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is another similar situation, but with the most beloved Paper Mario game in the series. And all of this begs the question, yeah, but what makes that a good thing? Because on one hand, putting out a bunch of pretty and modernized versions of old games isn't the most exciting thing in the world. Wouldn't it be better to just have a bunch of brand new games that are pushing new ground? Well, for one thing, we do also have those games as well. Tears of the Kingdom, Pikmin 4, Princess Peach Showtime, we assume. But more importantly, let's go back to what we assume is Nintendo's three-part thesis. First, to announce new hardware at the right time with the right lineup of games. Second, to cater to and carry forward their current audience. And lastly, to bolster their franchises in and out of games. And at this time, Remakes is the solution to just about all of these. To start with the last and most obvious one, this allows them to have multiple games to support their huge franchise, coming out of their incredible blockbuster of the Mario movie, the second highest grossing animated movie of all time, not including the new Lion King, because that's silly. If it weren't for Remakes, they'd have Mario Wonder and Princess Peach Showtime as new games, which is still great, but doesn't support their apparent scattershot approach where they also have Mario vs. Donkey Kong, presumably as they work on a Donkey Kong game. Watch this video to see our pitch for the one that they should make. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, Super Mario RPG, and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. Remakes allowed them to do all of that within a much tighter timeline than a brand new game ever could. For the second point, this allows them to cater to their current Switch audience. They can put out lots of games, but even more so, they can put out exactly the games that they know are either great or low-risk fan service titles. Thousand Year Door and Super Mario RPG have had avid fan bases screaming for years that these games should come back in some way, having given up most hope that they ever would. The Metroid Prime series was absent for so long, and Retro finished this game over a year before it came out, but they released it when they did. Maybe not every one of these announcements are the most exciting in and of themselves, but they're safe at worst. But the big point that I really want to make is just to show how this whole initiative sets up Nintendo for their next generation, because I think that's what this is mostly about. I remember watching a Corridor Crew Animators React episode where they talked about an anime and said that anytime the production throughout a given episode of a really good anime felt kind of still and minimalist, they'd get really excited because they knew that all the time and budget went to some really awesome fight at the end of the episode that was going to make it all worth it. In everything we do, there's an equivalent exchange between what we have and where we give it. If Nintendo put all of their effort into big, flashy, new games at the tail end of the Switch, it would mean that either their next generation is even further out, or the games for it have a high chance of being no more impressive and grand feeling than the ones we already have. And what we have is great, but a new console generation is at its best when it feels like a new console generation. I've actually got a video coming out in just a couple weeks about basically exactly that, so again, subscribe. So it's wise to start shifting your senior talent to the next generation while the more junior teams are able to work on remakes. And this is a big point too. Remakes and remasters are perfect for getting new talent up to speed. A lot of you know I make music. I'm actually releasing a song a week right now. I'll put a link in the description. It's been a lot of fun. And there is so much you can learn about the tools and skills you have simply by playing or recording a cover of a song. Half of your decisions are already made for you, and you can just choose how to change it or learn how to make the thing do what the thing is supposed to do. So this is an incredible way for Nintendo to keep putting out games that were expertly selected and at the same time teach younger talent the ropes so that they can have even more experienced team members or outside partnerships going into their next generation. But it doesn't stop there. We've talked about Advance Wars and Another Code and Famicom Detective Club and even Mario vs. Donkey Kong and so many more. Oh, and F-Zero 99. It's not part of this conversation exactly, but it certainly factors in. These are all franchises that had one foot in the grave, or for some of them, were just completely submerged in the earth. And these remakes were able to bring them to the modern era, and what this means is that now Nintendo can take these franchises, make new games in their series, and give them entirely new life. To most Switch owners, these may as well be brand new games, and then the brand new games that come after those would be, sequels, for example. Suddenly, a new Advance Wars doesn't feel like such a risk because sales numbers can be predicted, or a new F-Zero after however many people have played it on Nintendo Switch Online now. But even in a world where these series don't get new games, there's still an inherent benefit in these remakes. On one hand, preservation. But I don't think Nintendo actually really cares about that, so that's not really what this is. Really, it's that I suspect that down the road, Nintendo is going to run out of NES, SNES, Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and N64 games for the Nintendo Switch Online, and really consider starting to dip into their GameCube and DS libraries. And at that point, they certainly will make money off of those games, but comparatively, not nearly as much as if each one had a tentpole release of its own. And frankly, I'd prefer to play a modernized version of a game that I really love playing over the original. If a Golden Sun 1+2 HD came out, I would be thrilled, even with those two games on NSO. Or like, how many more people played Link's Awakening on Switch than on the Game Boy Nintendo Switch Online version? What I'm getting at is, it's entirely reasonable to be disappointed at the broader idea that a lot of games coming out in what seem to be the last years of the Switch are remakes of some sort. But I think time will tell if it's actually Nintendo being lazy, or what I absolutely think is the case, which is that this is the really beautiful and fan-servicey calm before the storm. These remasters and remakes are giving us the games we want in the way we want to see them, building up younger talent at Nintendo so that they can make even better games sooner, setting up old franchises for a brand new start, bolstering their IP, and maybe most importantly, buying time and resources for the games on the next generation to likely be some of the best and most impressive we've seen from Nintendo, or to me, the industry at large. But that's what I think. What do you think? Do you agree that Nintendo is being strategic with their resources and building up to something really awesome in the coming year or two? Or do you think they're just being lazy and phoning it in because they can? Time will tell, but I have a lot of faith in Informer, but I want to hear your thoughts. And like I said, we have several videos coming out in the next couple of weeks that all use this idea as a sort of jumping off point. So be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to see those. Also, check out our Patreon in the description where all these lovely people have enabled us to bring this channel to life. We couldn't do it without you. That's it for me. Peace and blessings.